Hello, welcome back. My name is India and I happen to read a lot. And yes, I'm filming in my pajamas. But would you know these are pajamas if I didn't tell you already that they were pajamas? I got these from Tesco's. They're super cute and I feel like I'm about to go to the office, but really I'm going to sleep. Today we are going to be talking about the books that I read in March. Now, if any of you have seen my March TBR video and then get to the end of this video, you're going to be like, India, I don't think many of those were on your TBR. You would be correct. They are not. I went through a weird situation where I just did not like the vibe of any of the books that I picked for March. I just went completely off the rails and just ended up picking up based on vibes and vibes alone. But the way that we do wrap-ups is we start from the worst rated book all the way to the top, so we can celebrate at the end, leaving best till last. So let's go in already with my 1-star read. We've already got a 1-star read this year. They only ever come around once a year, so maybe we're done and dusted and we don't have to worry about 1-star books for the rest of the year. So my only 1-star read for the month of March 2025 was As Kingfishers Catch Fire. Oh my god, wait, is that the title? Hold on. By Gerard Manley Hopkins. I knew going into it because it was a poetry collection that I am not the most versed when it comes to poetry. I don't read much poetry. I don't know much about poetry. So I did think, am I going to enjoy this? And the answer was no. The answer was no, I did not. And at first I thought, am I just being uncultured and it's just my lack of poetry knowledge? The answer also was, according to the Goodreads ratings, no, it just wasn't that great. I have set myself like a little mini challenge. It's nothing like major. I highly doubt I'll even finish it this year. It'll probably be something I finish in next year in 2026. But I want to read all of the Little Black classics. And I only read 3 this month. I hope to read a couple more in April. But this was the 3rd one I read, I think. No, the 2nd one I read. And the first one I really enjoyed, and we'll talk about the one in a second. But I had a lot of high hopes going into this, and it was just so boring. And that was the only thing I can say. It was just really fucking boring. And the poetry, there were a couple of things I liked, a couple of lines that I liked that I highlighted, but overall just like, I gotta take people's word for it when they say this guy was a renowned poet, because I didn't care personally myself, but I realised I think it's very poetry for that specific time, which obviously doesn't work for me. Also, weirdly, they just decided to add some diaries where he just spoke about nature, but it was very much the way that I write a diary, which is like, I did this today, then I did this. And it was just super boring, and I just hated it. So yeah, 1 star. Then for my 3-star book, we have The Saga of Gunnlaug's Serpent Tongue. This is a Icelandic legend following Gunnlaug as he goes about his life. And it was very good. It was very funny. I had a really good time reading it. I wouldn't say I was blown away by it. I liked the poetry in that a lot more than I did in the Gerard Hopley Mankins. In the Gerard one, I didn't really care for the poetry in that one, but I loved the poetry in that story. I love legends. There was a podcast I used to listen to ages ago called Myths and Legends, where the host would literally just tell you myths and legends from around the world. And I always loved the kind of Northern European, the Scandinavian legends. So it was really fun to read this. I really enjoyed it. I had a really, really great time. And yeah, it was like an epic legend and I loved it. Now, March, despite being a very turbulent month, I had a lot of 4 stars. A lot of 4-star books this month, which was really, really good. Considering that I just like threw out my entire TBR and just went based on vibes alone, I was very happy that my vibes were right and were very 4-star level. So the first 4-star book on this list is Delicious in Dungeon Volume 5 by Ryoko Kui. I started this series last year based on nothing but I was loving Freerun Beyond Journey's End, which takes inspiration from RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. So I wanted to read more manga that had that kind of JRPG, Dungeons and Dragons vibe. And then everybody was saying Delicious in Dungeon. This is a series following a venturing party who delve into the dungeons to save another member of their party who's been swallowed up by a dragon. But they decide to go in with no provisions and they meet a dwarf who teaches them how to harvest and eat the monsters in the dungeon as a way to get some food in their bellies and progress into that scary ass dungeon. This is the 5th volume. Volume 4 ended up with a massive like mic drop of a moment. So going into this, I was really excited to see the payout of what happened at the end of Volume 4. I thought this was fine. I thought it was really enjoyable. Obviously, it was a 4-star read. I don't think there was any way you could have topped Volume 4 in regards to the plot because it was so poignant what happened. I felt this was a very good, not restart, but reset after what happened in Volume 4 and re-establishing the characters, their dynamics, their boundaries with one another after this big reveal. So I thought that was really good. I'm intrigued to see where the rest of the series goes because I feel like at this point now the arc basically has just shifted. The first 4 volumes were dedicated to this one cause, and now the story has shifted and we're focusing on a different part of the tale now, and it was kind of setting up that next arc. But it was really, really enjoyable. I loved the characters. The art style was so good. I am excited though to get the ball rolling on this new arc and see where the rest of the series takes us. And then we have the final little black classic that I read this month, which was Mrs. Rosie and the Priest by Giovanni Boccaccio. This was part of it's part of a wider book, the Decameron. The Decameron or the Decameron? It is little short stories taken from that very big book. I went into this knowing nothing about the Decameron, knowing nothing really about the short stories, going in very blind. And I just knew that obviously it was a classic and it was quite an old classic and that it was taken from the Decameron. And I read the most horniest collection of short stories I think I've ever read in my entire life. And I was reading Ali Hazelwood novellas this month. I was so shocked and surprised. I think maybe myself and probably others as well, have this notion that the classics and like the past is a lot more like prudish and less liberating than we are in the modern day. But to read, it was like a woman left her husband because he had sex with her once and then was not fussed to do it ever again. And I'm all up for an asexual king, but instead of just like letting this poor woman go because clearly they're not compatible sexually, he just made up excuses of different religious holidays for why they couldn't have sex. So she leaves him. Iconic. There was a priest who basically had sex with all the wives in the village except for Mrs. Rosie, and I was very, very surprised and shocked by that because I just assumed it would be like no sex before marriage and it's with the lights off and your eyes closed. So I was very surprised by the risqueness of that collection, but I had a great time. It was so funny. It was really, really good. It makes me want to pick up the Decameron. It was that good. Then the next book that I read all of the Ali Hazelwood books. So I'm putting all 3 of them together because all 3 of them were 4-star books. So I read Under One Roof, which was a romance where where this woman dies and she gifts her house to her nephew and her most trusted student, who basically they had a kind of mother-daughter kind of relationship. And these two do not hit it off at all in the beginning. And then obviously it's a romance, you know how it ends. Then I read Stuck With You, which was about 2 engineers. They were called the Steminist novellas, which I loved. 2 engineers that get locked in a lift together and they have to have an honest conversation about what went wrong in their kind of budding relationship. And then the last one was Below Zero, which is set in Svalbard. Love. And it's all to do with research in the Antarctic and things like that. And Stuck With You was my favourite. I will say that. Stuck With You was my favourite. I don't know what it is. I like their dynamic. I liked the lift, kind of getting stuck in the lift together. And I thought that their drama made the most sense. Not the most sense, but like had a little bit more of a grip in reality than just like, oh, we're roommates and we don't get on. I liked more the whole dynamic of what went wrong with their relationship. It was my first foray into Ali Hazelwood books. I'd never read any Ali Hazelwood at that point. I was never really interested in the love hypothesis, but I do own on my Kindle, which is not here, it's somewhere. I do own on my Kindle one of her other ones. I can't remember which one. I've always been intrigued by Ali Hazelwood, but I've never really had the time, or I've had too many other books, then pick up one of hers. But I decided to give her novellas a go because I thought that'd be a really good way to figure out if I liked Ali Hazelwood's writing. And it was just, they were all really good. They were all really funny. The characters were really interesting. I loved the friendship between the 3 female main characters, and they all popped up in each other's books. I always like when that happens. I thought the romance was great. I thought the different ideas were really, really good. I loved being the whole lift story. And yeah, overall just a really good time. I definitely want to read more Ali Hazelwood books. My friend Libby said the best thing to do is just start in publication order. If you start with Deep End, which I know what Deep End focuses on, she was like, it's either going to make or break whether you read any more Ali Hazelwood books, so start with The Love Hypothesis. So I will probably, at some point in time, read The Love Hypothesis. But yeah, really, really good. Very, very happy. And the next 4-star on my list was Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter. This was like a bit of a TikTok viral book like 2 years ago that I've only just got around to reading it. Unfortunately, I am one of those people where if it gets really viral, my brain just shuts off and I'm like, oh, can't read it now. So 2 years after it went viral, I finally managed to read Murder in the Family, which is an epistolary novel. We all know she loves her epistolary novels. And this follows a TV producer who decides to put on a true crime series to solve his own stepfather's murder. And the way that he does is they get professionals from different parts of the forensic and investigation elements. You've got a psychologist, a forensic scientist, a police officer who was in charge around that time, a private investigator, all these things. And they try to figure out who the murderer is. And yeah, it was really good. I like the TV show format. I always like epistolary novels. I thought the plot was really engaging. I really liked the way the epistolary novel was used. It was a lot like a bit of a script. It was a really good time. The only thing I would say that didn't make it a 5 stars is I don't think the characters were like the most... They were fine. They served a purpose. I wouldn't say I was bowled over by how incredible these characters were. Even though I guessed who the main murderer was pretty much like in the first 50 pages, there was enough other twists and turns and reveals that still kept the plot exciting, despite kind of already guessing where it was going to go. So I didn't ultimately get to the end when the murderer was revealed and be disappointed that I knew, because I feel like I'd got so much within the novel. This was the first time, though, that I'd read an epistolary novel where the pacing felt slow. Normally in epistolary novels, I can read them over like a day or 2 days. Like Janice Hallett, I will always say, is the queen of epistolary. And her pacing is just incredible. Janice Hallett was also a screenwriter, so I get that. But this was the only case where the epistolary felt quite slow-paced, which I was quite unsure of. I think if the plot wasn't as intriguing as it was, it wouldn't be a 4-star review. I just think with the characters that weren't the most exciting and the pacing feeling a bit slow, that was kind of the dampener. But I did just really enjoy the plot, and I do love the epistolary style anyway. But yeah, 4 stars for Murder in the Family. Then my final 4-star for March, which might shock some people, is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I did a whole reading vlog for this book. The actual reading vlog itself is spoiler free, but I do spoilerish thoughts at the end. So if you want to know my spoilerish thoughts on this book, please do check out that video. It is on my channel. I'll link it, all of that kind of stuff. To keep it spoiler free, my thoughts on this were, I don't think we can do anything else in the Hunger Games world anymore. This was enjoyable. I had a really good time. Haymitch as a character is incredible. I feel like this was the final puzzle in the series, but I think after this, I don't think we need any more Hunger Games books. I did like all the, whether you call it fan service or not, I did like all the connections to the other books in the series. I thought that was great. My only issue that I had, which meant that it couldn't be a 5 stars for me, was even though I love the Hunger Games world, I really enjoyed the characters, the Hunger Games itself in this book is very short, and I don't feel like we spent enough time with the emotional moments in the books. I felt the story felt quite rushed, and some of the choices that Suzanne Collins gives Haymitch in this book, while I like it and I understand it for the whole series as a whole, I wouldn't say I loved the choice. I understand why this happened in the grander scheme of the series, and I love it from that point. From a standalone book, I had issues with it, and it's hard to explain that without going into spoilers. So please check out my reading vlog. It's probably the best way to understand what I'm trying to say. Moving on to my 5-star books. So first up is A Sweet Sting of Salt. And for those of you who don't know, I'm trying to read all of the Goodreads fantasy longlist books. So all the books that were chosen in the fantasy category of the Goodreads Choice Awards, I'm trying to read them. The first book I read was A Sweet Sting of Salt, which is a queer retelling of The Selkie Wife. I went into this thinking, do you know what? It's probably gonna be really good. It's on the long list, so it's gonna be good. Like, it's on there for a reason, so it's gonna be good. I loved it. It was a perfect, semi-historical, kind of calm book. It's got beautiful characters, beautiful setting. I loved the story so much. I don't know the story of The Selkie Wife, so I went into this knowing nothing. I really, really enjoyed it. Our main character, Jean, is incredible. I loved all the connections to the sea and the coast and cliffs. It was so beautiful. The plot was so engaging. The romance in this was just so amazing. I just loved every second of this. I read this on my week off and I spent time with this and it was so, so good. I think my challenge is off to an amazing start. I'm intrigued to see, because I plan on kind of reading every single one more or less and then ranking them myself based on my own enjoyment. This was the one that got the least amount of votes, but I have a feeling it's going to be very high on my personal ranking. I loved this book so much. And finally, for the last book of the month and my favourite book of the month, this is my 5-star book of March 2025. This is my favourite one. It is Bookish by Lucy Mangan. I read this in preparation for an event that I was attending. I was helping sell books for this literary festival, and Lucy Mangan was attending to talk about Bookish. So I read it in preparation for that so I could talk to customers about it and also so I could talk to her about it. And it's all about her life and the books that were important to her from GCSE until the present day. It is so witty, so funny. There are so many books in there. There's literally a list at the back of the book where she gives you all of the books that she's mentioned, all the books that she's mentioned in this book. And it was so insightful, so funny. I do think Lucy Mangan and I, despite reading quite different books, she's more of a kid's literary with a bit of thriller based on this, while I'm more of a sci-fi fantasy, modern day teen manga kind of reader. Despite our differences in genres, 100% we think the exact same way in regards to books and how we treat books and how we read books. So I did feel like I was kind of reading my own brain, and somebody had gone into my brain, taken all of my thoughts out and put it on the page. I really, really just loved it. I thought it was so good, so funny. And meeting Lucy Mangan was an amazing experience. I got this signed actually. So it's signed. I also have Bookworm, which is somewhere, which is another book that she's written about her childhood reading. And yeah, it was just really, really good. I had a great time reading this. I definitely think this is going to be a contender for the top 10. This was just an incredible collection of books, and I'm glad that I went with my own vibe for March. I am very excited, and I do think April is probably leaning more to what I normally read, but I am very excited for what April has in store. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know if there were any March books that you loved or hated. I actually love knowing books that people didn't like. Call me a hater, but I do. But let me know how your March went. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. And yeah.